So guys, finally the Obidient movement has replied the ADC after calling the Obidients divisive mobs. The Obidient movement is insisting that it must be Peter Obi or nothing, and they are saying from the name Obedience means that they are supporters of Peter Obi and they cannot come to the ADC to support another person after saying they are obedient to Peter Obi. So guys, there's been a whole lot of pressure coming from the ADC asking the Obidients to stop insisting that it must be Peter Obi. Now, Obidients are saying that they are sensing that, you know, there's an agreement already on ground to deny Peter Obi the ticket of the coalition. I'm going to allow you to listen for yourself how this guy has replied the ADC, how he has responded to what the ADC said. And in case you don't know, the ADC came out saying that that the Obidient movement are divisive mob. See how this headline captured it. Obedients are divisive mob. They will ruin Peter Obi's chance in 2027 election, ADC. And then the ADC went ahead to also say 2027 ADC cracks as Obedients demand presidential ticket. So the ADC is saying that Obedients are going to ruin Peter Obi's chance in the ADC, and Obedients are now saying it appears they've already concluded on who to give the ticket to, and that the Obidient movement is not going to support any other person if not Peter Obi. Now, I want you to take your time and listen to the response coming from the Obidient movement. This guy was on Arise Television where he replied the ADC. Take your time and watch this video to the end to see what he has got to say, and let me also know your reaction in the comment section below. Now, take a look.
Peter Obi supports in public is organic. Peter was my governor for 8 years. Peter will not give you 1,000 naira to support him. He will not pay you to support him. You understand what I'm saying? So anybody saying maybe Peter will not do it. Go and ask his wife where Peter Obi lives. Where Peter Obi lives in Anambra State. He lives in a 2-room. When they wanted to build, he just told the wife that hey, he doesn't need all these this thing. They should just give him two rooms. A former governor, a former chairman of a bank. That is Peter's life. Or even someone that is just a local government chairman will come to Abuja. They are staying at the Transcorp Hilton. Go and ask where Peter sleeps anytime he's in Abuja, and he's always almost in Abuja. Find out the hotel that Peter sleeps. You understand? He's not the type that believes in. When Buhari wanted to be president, we heard everything. Oh, he will sell off all the aircrafts in the presidential fleet. His daughter carried presidential aircraft to go and be doing photo shoots. So if you see people coming out massively to support Peter Obi, it's because of probably what they've seen about him and in him, and it's their right. I just hope and I pray that Nigerians will do not miss it.
Well, just as the intro said, there are, discussions about the disruptive nature of the Obedients online, but we know that, the Obedients are not a monolith. So what do you make of these critiques, and what do you have to say in defense?
Thank you once again. First off, I would like to say categorically that as a movement, we do not believe that we are being divisive, and I think that it's unfortunate that those terms would be used by people who we think should know better. When we say Obi or nothing, that statement doesn't exist in a vacuum. That statement was not pulled out of the air. That statement is in response to a certain atmosphere. And while we are fully in support of the coalition building process, it needs to be remembered by all parties concerned that that's exactly what it is, a coalition building process. We are not a monolith as a movement, like you rightly said, and even the coalition itself is a work in progress. So when we say Obi or nothing, coming from a movement that is named the Obidient movement, I think it's right on the nose what we mean. But for people who may choose to misconstrue it or put a different spin on it, let me spell it out plainly. It is simply a statement that is affirmative of where we stand in the political process. We have chosen Peter Obi, right, in the midst of so many players who have a right to run and who are capable of running. But a generation of Nigerians who were previously accused of being apathetic to politics politics in the past few years looked at the situation and really, in a very organic process, evolved to say, you know what, we want to be a part of this process. And in being a part of this process, we need to look at the playing field and determine who amongst these players, right, best embodies the values that we have. And what are those values? Values that drive a Nigeria that works for everybody, not for some people. And Peter Obi, a movement coalesced around him very organically. He didn't pay for it. He couldn't pay for it. It's very organic. It is people that are passionate about the country. It is people that are passionate about what we want to see in the Nigeria of the immediate and in the near-term future. He represents all of those values. We can capture it in several words: character, competence, capacity. All right? So when we say Peter Obi or nothing, we are affirming where we stand. Does that mean we have rejected the coalition building process? No, we are part of it. We are currently engaging. If you look at the news around the country, Obidients, since his official joining of the ADC, have started making moves to actually join the partisan structure itself. And let's address the elephant in the room. Having said all that I said, a certain rhetoric started to emerge, which we will not be shy about responding to. A certain rhetoric that made it look like there's a predetermined outcome, right, of the process. And let me say this way. If I were the spokesperson of the ADC, here's what I would say to people who are loudly, not insulting anyone, but loudly and rightfully so, affirming their support for a specific individual. I would speak to their passion. I would not poo-poo it. I would harness that passion. I would seek to gain their trust. And what do you mean by gaining the trust? I would reassure them, because there is a trust deficit in this country in the political space. We have seen movements come and go. We have political slogans come and go. We have all of the things that are going on, and people really are jaded about all that. And there's an uncompromising position about, you know what, we have to get this right. We do not want a country anymore where the aspirations of young people are centered around how to leave the country. All right, so I would seek to gain trust with this demographic. I would not seek to lecture them, because truly you do not have a lot of moral authority as far as these young people are concerned, and that's just the truth. I would not lecture. I would seek to gain consensus. I would seek to gain their trust. I would seek to reassure that, hey, listen guys, we hear you, we understand you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do in this process. We're going to make it as transparent as possible, right? We're going to make sure that all voices are heard. I would not seek to be shutting down any voices at such an early stage in the process.
Okay, so you've said a couple of things. You know, you've affirmed that the Obidient movement is also part of the coalition building process. You're not against the coalition. You've said there are so many individuals involved who have the right to run, who are also capable and they are competent. And then, of course, you know that there have been calls for all the aspirants to close ranks. So in that kind of situation, would you still support the APC even if Peter Obi does not eventually pick up the ticket as the presidential candidate? The ADC.
The ADC.
Yes.
Right. Again, like I said, this is a movement that has organically grown around a specific individual. And we will not be apologetic about that. And we will leave no one in doubt that our loyalty is to the country called Nigeria. Our political allegiance is to the leader of this movement, Peter Obi. That support, that very granular, very organic support is non-negotiable. It will not be subjected to horse trading, right? We will not sacrifice the values that we hold on the altar of political convenience. We have interactions. And again, this is one of the things that endear a lot of people who support this movement in the man. We have interactions with him all the time, right? And he understands where the people who support him stand, right? We are not for sale. We envision a Nigeria that is led by a person like Peter Obi. Fortunately for us, we don't have to imagine him. He exists, right? He has a track record, right? So we can point to an individual and say, this guy looks like the guy that will give us the kind of country that we want. And that is what the support is all about. Now, are you going to come tomorrow and tell us, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to be, stepping back from the race. Okay, so fine. We all step down from the race. But we do not see a situation where the conductor becomes the driver, in a manner of speaking. We believe, in as much as we are part of the coalition building process, right? We believe that when we put the players on the board, in every team, you put your best players forward. We are unequivocally saying that we believe that this is the best striker we have on this team. And we believe that he should lead the squad.
But you are just one of the several voices.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
your voice alone cannot determine
And we are not
who
saying so.
eventually emerges.
We are saying, don't tell us to shut up. That's what we are saying. Like I said earlier, we have not gone around insulting anyone. We have gone around preaching the message of, this is the guy that we believe in, Mr. Peter Obi. That is without prejudice to anyone else. It's a democratic process, right? We recognize other people's right to support who they want to support. But that right or that recognition does not then mean that we have lost the focus, right, of who our support is for. Now, if a situation emerges tomorrow and we see clearly through a process that, all right, it looks like we might be needing to make some compromises, that conversation can then be had. But if you out of the gate, from the jump, begin to make statements and begin to take a position that makes it look like there's a predetermined outcome, we have an obligation to ourselves and what we stand for to remind everybody that this is not a fait accompli. There's no predetermined outcome here. We do have our agenda and we are not apologizing about that agenda. So let's then come together and have a conversation. And like I said, it's one thing to have rhetoric coming from different stalwarts, maybe online, people talking. It's another thing to make official statements, right? If I do not know if the party position is in alignment with Mr. Abdullahi's very recent statements about the Obidient movement. I don't know if it is the ADC saying those things about the Obidient movement or if that is his personal opinion. I do not necessarily want to conflate both things. But I want to reiterate, we are at the table for this conversation. But please do not make the mistake of thinking that we are a walkover. You know, back in 2022-23, there was so much rhetoric about 4 people tweeting in a room and hey, we said we'll meet at the polls, and we met at the polls, and let's not relitigate how that all turned out, right? So we're ready to have the conversation. We're here to have the conversation, but please do not start to become undemocratic by seeking to silence dissenting voices. If these young people are upset, rightly so.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But how do you avoid the trap? As you rightly said, there is the stereotype that has been stuck on the movement. Regardless, you know how political actors act. You know the shenanigans and the maneuverings and the messaging and the communication. You know all of that. So how do you avoid the trap? How is the movement going to evolve their communication style and their strategy for 2027 in order to ensure that, you know, the passion and the engagement that is there is not misconstrued as a threat, but seen as a tool for better governance and inclusion for the youth who have such large numbers and definitely want to be engaged?
Thank you for that question. You see, it's one thing to put a spin or to create a narrative about something. It's another thing for that to be the reality. I mean, you're not wrong when you say people call us all sorts of names. But on the ground, in reality, we know who the real mobsters are. We know who the real gangsters are. We know the people who prevented people from voting by deploying thugs and violence. We have never been violent. Our assertiveness should not be conflated with violence. We have never attacked people for any reason, not for their ethnic affiliations, not for any of that, not for their political leanings. What we are very vociferous about and will continue to be about is the message of we want a Nigeria that works. Enough of the horse trading with the future of this country, right? Enough of the political chess playing. We want authentic leadership that listens to the people. We want leadership that actually takes action driven by the needs of the governed. We do not want a pseudo-monarchy in this country anymore. And there is no amount of spin they are going to put on that that's going to make us stop talking about that. If we are a threat to anybody, we are a threat to every person who has stolen and continues to steal the patrimony of this country. As far as the democratic process is concerned, we will continue to be the bone stuck in your neck. We will continue to be your nemesis if you continue to look for a Nigeria or try to make Nigeria backwards as we've seen in the recent years.
Okay, now you talking about the 2023 election. Of course, you talked about the thuggery and the fact that some people were prevented from voting, during the last election. So I'm wondering what lesson, would you say the Obidient movement has learned from that 2023 election that will serve you better in 2027?
Oh yeah, we did take a lot of lessons. We did take a lot of lessons that are serving us in how we are organizing now. Like I said, the movement was an organic, it evolved organically. So maybe a couple of things could have been said about what we could have done better. We've sat back, we've looked at all that, and we have gone through an ongoing, we are going through a very arduous, sometimes painful process of doing the things. We understand the difference between a movement and a political platform. The more, the closer we've drawn, right, to the next elections, the more we've done the work at the grassroots level that is needed to make sure that when we show up at the polls the next time, some of the lapses that we suffered, even though we won the election regardless, some of the lapses that we suffered in terms of organizational structure will not be the problem the next go around.
Voters in a bid to protect the NNPP votes after the election. So they can be seen breaking to hold prayers as they watch over the collation process, which would have started later. But you can see this was led by Kwankwaso and his followers at the gubernatorial election. He's there as well, and several other notable individuals. So mixed reactions coming in. Some people are behind Kwankwaso, saying, well, look at the huge sacrifice he made. He stayed up all night to protect the vote. And other people are saying, well, if you support Kwankwaso, how can you not support Nyesom Wike? Some of the thoughts, Rufai.
Okay. See, the truth is this. Political godfathers should know that they will not last forever. And once you put a political godson in power, once he gets the power, it's all over. Like I said, it's not everybody that will be Ododo. And I said that for a reason. Because it's probably Ododo. I have not heard him have any squabble with his political leader, Yaya Bello. I don't know how they do it, but they do it so well. Secondly, when you go back to Kanu, there's a long history of people fighting with their political godfather. Kwankwaso's own political godfather, Abubakar Rimi, had a disagreement with Aminu Kanu. While he was governor, they had their disagreement, they had their falling out. I don't see why Kwankwaso should be nervy about it, because this is not the first time it has happened. In fact, this is the second time. That was how he said he was a political godfather of Ganduje. But Ganduje left him, and Ganduje has forged on. Ganduje has also had his own political son in Ganua that tried running. There was the opposing candidate to this governor in the last election. So why is Kwankwaso feeling frenetic about it? It's the game. Once you give your political godson power, there is no how he will want to find his path for himself. And that is what is happening. And it's a message to all political godfathers out there that think that they are all in all. Before you became a political godfather, you were subservient to somebody. So there's no big deal about it. For me, the challenge is just the reason at which they are saying they want to align with the center. And didn't they know all of this before? Is when the fight side, they say, oh, they didn't allow me appoint commissioner, appoint this and all of that. I think for Kwankwaso, the best is, if he still owns the NNPP, now he should start looking for another political godson that he will throw into the election to fight against this person that is there. At least he looked for somebody, he supported somebody to be able to fight against Ganduje in the 2019 elections, if my memory serves me right. Abi? So let's stop deceiving ourselves. There's nothing too emotional about it. And let me make the final point by. Plus, the political father and the political godson, they don't care about you and I, the Nigerian people. They care about how they can appropriate Nigerian resource for one, their own control, and two, for their own livelihood. And that's why they are so quick to look for the social media influencers that's going to help them abuse on social media and give them motorbikes and all of that. It's not that deep. It's for their own selfish interest.
That's it. Dr. Bati, will he be allowed to wear his red cap? Because Governor Yusuf is still wearing the traditional
Didn't he copy from Aminu Kanu? Why will Kwankwaso stop him already red cap?
Today, that is going to formally, register as a member of APC, along with the 22 members of the House of Assembly, 8 members of the House of Representatives, 44 local government chairmen in Kano State. Maybe when he formally joins the APC today, he will maybe remove the Kwankwansia camp. However, what Kano politicians say is that there is a difference between the NNPP and also the Kwankwansia. Kwankwansia is a political ideological movement of Kwankwanso. NNPP is the party, and NNPP, we have been told, is troubled. But the main thing here is Kano is a very important state in the election calculus. If you want to be president of Nigeria, you win in Kano, you win in Lagos, you win in Rivers, you get the numbers. So they have 44 local governments, close to about 20 million voters. So what you are witnessing is a battle for the soul of Kano politics, battle for the control of Kano as we approach 2027. Now you are going to have Governor Yusuf together with Ganduje on the same side, with APC at the center trying to grab Kano. Now, how much influence Dr. Kwankwanso has in Kano State will be tested again this time around. And whether or not he himself will end up going to join the APC remains to be seen. But one issue of concern here has to do with the relationship between godfathers and godsons. Godfathers, as we are beginning to see, also die. One godfather was deposed, some kind of regicide, in your state. We've seen an evolving regicide in Rivers State. We've seen it, I think, in Anambra State also, and in some other states across the country. I think it is important for these persons who call themselves godfathers to realize that a time will come when the son will also aspire to become the father. And that's why we have all these tension, conflicts in many states in Nigeria. But the story is that Governor Yusuf doesn't feel free enough. Administrators are appointed for him, councillors are appointed for him, party chieftains are appointed for him. It can be quite suffocating for you to be a governor like Fubara, a governor like Abba Yusuf, and you are not allowed to exercise your own authority. And now we hear that he has been promised automatic ticket in the APC, which he was not sure of in the NNPP with the influence of the godfather. So basically, politicians are looking for power and they want to survive and they also want to grow. So that's an area of concern that we have to continue to look at. I made a point that when eventually he declares, he will become number 31 of the governors, out of 36 governors and FCT. There are only just about 5 persons who are not already in the APC. But how that will affect the 2027 process remains to be seen. Because some analysts have also said, well, some of these governors are pretending. They will just join the APC, they will collect money, they will collect second term, but that they may not mean well. And that they cannot dictate to the people. As Sanatu Musawa was saying, she was saying that, look, voters in the north are sophisticated and politics runs deep, in that part of the country. So you never know how the game will play out. And Yaga Africa tells us in the National Voter Intention Survey that enthusiasm towards 2027 is highest in the northern part of the country. So all of this we can feed into the equation.
Well, a lot of dynamics unraveling. There's going to be a number of battlefield states this time around, and we'll keep our eyes on it. But speaking of the few governors that remain in opposition, Governor of Oyo State, Shey Makinde, has criticized what he perceives as a lack of transparency in the Nigeria Tax Act 2025. Now, this comes as the House of Representatives Minority Caucus Ad Hoc Fact-Finding Committee has confirmed that unauthorized alterations were made to some tax reform laws in the Nigeria Tax Administration Act 2025 after they were passed by the National Assembly and assented to by Bola Tinubu. Well, the committee reported that up to 3 different versions of the law are currently in circulation. Only one version aligns with the certified true copies officially issued by the House of Representatives. Well, here's what the governor had to say about the tax bill.
In this dispensation, there was a tax bill. And we said, look, bring the tax bill, bring it back. Let us all have an opportunity to look dispassionately at it. But we cannot speak truth to power in this dispensation. So the tax bill will go ahead. It's an affront for even the governors to be saying what the presidency has done to send the tax bill to the National Assembly. They should bring it back. It won't happen. And we know where we are right now. The tax bill, we don't know what was passed at the National Assembly. We don't also know what was signed.
All right, well, while one governor is saying he's unaware, in another state, the state is moving forward with the tax bill. So still staying on the tax bill, a letter issued by Lagos Internal Revenue Service over the weekend has gone viral. The LIRS says it will begin enforcing its statutory power of substitution under the Nigeria Tax Administration Act 2025 to recover outstanding tax liabilities from defaulting taxpayers. Well, what does all this jargon mean? It means that if a taxpayer refuses or fails to pay an agreed tax debt, LIRS can issue a substitution notice. So this will allow LIRS to require banks, employers, customers, or anyone who holds or owes the taxpayer money to pay that amount directly to LIRS. And that payment is treated as settling the taxpayer's tax debt to that extent. So in essence, Ayo, if my landlord is owing 1 million in tax, I, as the tenant, can become liable to paying that 1 million directly to the taxman.
From your rent?
Yes, from my rent money. So here are some reactions online. One tweet says, the power is overreaching. So here is what will happen. If anyone owes you, you can owe taxes and tie it to your debtors not paying as and when due. I trust Nigerians to exploit this loophole. But Rashid says, LOL, we all know what we are doing. You intentionally misquoted Taiwo. Taiwo Oyedele has pretty much been clear. He explained that banks cannot deduct money from your account automatically if money comes in. This was the fear of the public. He also mentioned that banks can only deduct money from your account after tax liabilities have been established and the taxes have become final and conclusive. What does that mean? That is, assessment has been issued, which can be objected, and when there is no consensus, the tax appeal tribunal comes in, then High Court, finally Supreme Court. If the taxpayer still refuses to pay, then the tax authority can instruct the bank to deduct money from your account, which is what LIRS has stated in their notice. It's all very technical stuff, but the gist of it is that people are worried about the implications of the tax bill and whether we all really understand, especially as some states like Lagos State are moving forward to implement, although Governor Makinde says, as a governor, he doesn't know what's inside. Yeah.
Okay, it's a very big conversation and it's ongoing. And like you rightly said, Bimbai, a number of people do not understand the details or the terms or how it would affect them. So breaking it down to the implications for the ordinary man who is paying taxes. I think this is where the big disconnect is. And kudos to Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who has tried many times on different platforms to break it down, to explain, even though sometimes his statements are taken out of context or misconstrued. However, this clearly shows that there is a need for further awareness and a breakdown of the implications or the impact of the Joint Tax Act of 2025 in order for people not to misinform others. I recall that this particular question was actually posed to him when he came for the interview. And I think it was the Friday that was engaging him, and he said that the process was so long that it is almost impossible, that it's a means of last resort. And like the other ex-poster had put up, all the different processes that must be followed before you get to that. So whilst LIRS might put out a notice, the point is that it has to follow the due process. What we'll now see is whether or not there was some kind of untruth being told by how long the process will take. In fact, he discarded it, saying that those are not the people that they are looking for, because those who would default are probably the people that are paying taxes that are not the heavy hitters. And so before they would even begin to face that, it would take a long time, almost discounting people's concerns. But as LIRS has now come out, maybe a further clarification is required by people so that people don't feel like because people are now still posting out, in fact, some false posts that, they've deducted my money, it's tax, they've come for my money, and it's not as, clear cut as that. Just put that out there. But, and to assuage the, fears of certain people that it's not that straightforward, it's not going to happen that people are going to start deducting your money as based on the explanations, except again, another explanation comes to explain the explanation that was given by Mr. Taiwo Ejele. But going back to what Mr. Makinde said, the Governor Makinde said from Oyo State, it's a big concern. And, when this thing came out around the discrepancies with what was passed by the Joint House, the National Assembly, and what was gazetted, there were a number of calls from different quarters, the NBA, some governors, that let us address this issue before we begin to implement, because it has far-reaching consequences. It's not just the matter of the tax, which is a big deal. It also puts a shroud of, comma on a number of things that have been passed by this administration, because if it happened with the Joint Tax Act, it means that it might have happened before or it might happen again in the future. And this is why we said, perhaps should there be a pause on those sections of the law that were controversial until a full investigation has been instituted and we see the outcome, which we've now seen, where they are now saying there were indeed discrepancies. And so I'm expecting a statement from the federal government as to what is the way forward. Should Nigerians be, be under a law that is controversial, that lacks legitimacy or questions its legitimacy based on the process and the fact that there are lots of people who have said that it is not, that there are different things that have happened in the course of passing the law. So a number of questions there, but just to summarize in this, number one, a lot of people still do not know what this means for them. More information is required, more budgets if possible, so that the office is able to raise awareness, the National Orientation Agency able to put messages out there. We can have seminars to really let people know so that people are not afraid. It's a collective responsibility. If we must have a buy-in, we must know what it is that we're getting into.
That's it. That's absolutely it. And of course, clarity, with a number of documents now confirmed to be in circulation, which one is the correct document? Now, we're still in Oyo State. As a former First Lady of Oyo State, Dr. Florence Ajimobi has dismissed a viral video circulating on social media where she declares war against the PDP in the governorship election. She's described it as a fabricated deep fake aimed at misleading the public about her position on the 2027 governorship election. In a statement issued by her office on Saturday, Dr. Ajimobi said the video, which allegedly shows her making controversial remarks about the current PDP-led administration in the state, was never recorded by her. Well, here is the video.
We're going to war in 2027. That's what I tell you. It's going to be war. Head-on war. PDP must go. Whatever they want to do, whatever they want to try, whatever tricks, all powers belong to God. But we're going to beg God. And we are going to fight them. Whatever they have in the state, we have at the federal level. We have money. They have money in the state. We have money in the federal level. We have all the support we need. We are not going to be intimidated. So let them get ready for us. We are ready for them.
All right, well, according to the statement issued by the former First Lady, digital forensic experts reviewed the footage and they confirmed that it was generated using artificial intelligence, which manipulated lip movements and cloned voice patterns intended to imitate the former First Lady. However, an independent analysis of the full video shows that it is authentic and was recorded in June of 2025 during the 5th memorial prayer of her late husband, former Oyo State Governor Abiola Ajimobi, and that was held in Oyo State. Rufai, you're giggling.
See, AI has taught the devil. Everybody now lies on AI. Is AI, is AI, is AI. My dear Auntie Flori, the truth is, she said it, and I don't think it's good to lie on AI. Own up once they said it. I think the speech, the statement written, could have given a context around it and say, I didn't mean it that way. But to now lie openly on AI, and it is the same AI that they used to debunk your lie because they have evidence. You see, it's sad. And I feel what she said at that point in time, she had gone through a lot after her husband died. And it had not been a chummy relationship with the Sheyi Makinde-led state government. I don't want to go into details of that. And probably at the 5th anniversary, she felt very hurt, and she said a lot of things. People say things when they are hurt. But please, with due respect, we should remind politicians that it's about them in the end. heavens will not fall because things do not go your way. And 2027 is not war. It's about you and your political kith and kin. Today, she's been given a position. At least she's ambassador in waiting. Ambassador designates. Even if Dr. Bad says the agreement process takes very long and, you know. But she's been compensated. President Tinubu has looked at her. The Sheyi Makinde that she was probably at lockerheads then with, it is facing his own today. Sheyi Makinde that hardly talk has been speaking. If you ask her, she will not say what she said last year because she's probably in a better place. But for them, it's about their own political hegemony. I mean, some will even extend it that, oh, why is she saying this? But her husband was one of the first persons to win a 2-term in Oyo State. In fact, there used to be a talk then, political talk, then, one see on your Lemeji. So prior to her husband, prior to Ajimobi, nobody had won 2 terms. So they had the good perks of office. So because they are no longer there, she had no right to say because things are not going in your favor, it's going to be war. But please, people should stop lying on AI. That's one. And politicians should temper things down.
Okay, quick. First on taxation. Look, there's a lot of ignorance working on stilts out there with regard to the new tax laws, expressed by people who have not even made any effort to read any of the documents, who just rely on hearsay. Even in the House of Representatives, there is confusion between the Minority Caucus report and what the committee that was set up. The Senate has tried as much as possible to stay away from the controversy. But a law is made for man, not the other way around. And the true test of any law is in its implementation. It seems to me that as we begin the implementation of these 4 tax laws, there will be a lot that will be revealed. And the people of Nigeria have the right to question some of those provisions and to insist that law, any piece of legislation, being a living document, can always be revised. Now, take the issue of substitution. The Lagos State Internal Revenue Service is quoting Section 60 of the Tax Administration Act, the NTAA. And they say, okay, if you are served the notice and you have to pay under substitution, if you don't, if you disagree, there will be penalties for you. If you check that law, there must be a provision there that you can also insist on your right as an individual. If your landlord is owing money, then they say they are substituting, you should come and pay rent to them. You can go to court and say it doesn't concern me. So it's not as if, those who will be served substitution notices are helpless or that they are victims. But as I said, the true test of the law is in its implementation. And as they begin to implement, people will just have the right to insist on their rights too. That's the balance. Very quickly, as for Mrs. Ajimobi, well, I mean, the statement was issued that this was deep fake, but the statement just said from one of the spokespersons. Now, spokespersons who issue statements should be courageous enough to put their names to it. Because it looks like in this particular sense, the man who issued that statement was not bold enough to put his name there. So you can't have, spokespersons who act like ghosts because they themselves don't believe what they are saying. And then if you look at that video, there are persons there. There is a lady there wearing the same headgear with Mrs. Ajimobi. There are 2 men, one to the left, one to the right. They are human beings. I don't think that, they too are victims of deep fake. So it's a matter of honor for all these people who serenade their public figures to also have the courage to speak. But I imagine that a woman who has been appointed ambassador designate cannot come and be talking about war and be speaking in Jagun terms or Jagun or for your state terms. So that's why I think it is good that she has retracted, whether the excuse is logical or not, but at least...
No, she didn't retract. She just said they lied on AI.
She said they lied on her. Yeah, okay.
That's not retraction.
She said it's fake.
She didn't own up to it. She didn't retract. She just walked up promo AI.
Okay, whatever. The fake news and all of that. But at least she has said she did not say so.
Okay.
Because it would have been scandalous for an ambassador designate to be saying there will be war and that it will be serious war.
Dr. But you never know. In Donald Trump's world, it might be acceptable in diplomacy.
No, but she's not Donald Trump. She's an ambassador designate. We don't want a war.
I don't think they can guarantee him that because he will say that he got more than 1 million votes in Kanu in the last election. But no, he got more than 1 million, I think 1.4 million votes, but 90% of it was in just one state. Now, that does not convey strength in presidential election calculations. So it is the governor also who has taken a very big risk, because the first hurdle is whether he will now get renominated by
he's going to get the ticket.
Because APC in Kano also has many big candidates who want to contest for governor.
Well, clearly, Mazi Dixon Irebu, he hasn't announced his political destination, but we know where he's headed, don't we? And what does this mean for Kano's enormous voting power? Does it weaken the NNPP beyond recovery now?
The movement of the governor, as far as I'm concerned, this is the only thing the government of Tinubu has done very well. That's the only thing, bringing the elites, to his camp and all that. So securing Kano is a big win for him, but did the people move with the governor? That we'll find out, because the governor, did he become governor on his own popularity and all of that? No.
Although he says he's taking all the members of the state assembly and all
I hope
the
he
rest of it.
takes along the people of Kano. Kano is the state of...
Well, that's crucial, isn't it?
Yes, very important. And Kano voters are very informed. They can make their decision. And I won't believe that the governor is on his own at the moment, until we find out otherwise.
Will it be a choice between those who follow the governor and those who follow the leader of the party, depending on which direction he goes?
If Kwankwaso, from the experience he has gotten now, because if the proposal that was given to him in 2023 was accepted, for him to form alliance with Peter Obi and all of that, if he has realized that he can form that alliance, then the two of them can make a major statement in 2027. A Peter Obi presidency with Kwankwaso as vice would really make the villa, loosely.
Well, we'll have to watch and see. Let's turn to Rivers State, Mahmood, the tussle for power there and the rule of law. The impeachment push has stalled. Is this the rule of law working, or political actors, specifically in Nyesom Wike, miscalculating his leverage in Rivers State?
You see, Oga Charles, when I think back, as far back as the Second Republic, in all impeachment matters of governors and deputy governors, it requires a certain level of partisanship on the part of the chief judges of states for it to be successful. Why did I say that? The courts themselves, in 1981, when we had the first case of the Kaduna State Assembly trying to impeach the governor Balarabe Musa, the High Court, the Appeal Court, and the Supreme Court all said that the courts cannot stop the Assembly from impeachment process, because it's like stopping it from passing any other law, because they are constitutionally empowered to do that. But this time, as we can see, the courts in Rivers in particular have stopped the process. That's just one point. Now, when we discussed this matter right here on your program some months ago, I did point out that, okay, the Wike camp has the overwhelming majority of members of the Rivers Assembly enough to impeach the governor. But they have one obstacle, which is the chief judge of Rivers State, because it is the chief judge who will appoint the panel. And in all the experiences that we have had of impeachment of governors and deputy governors, the chief judges usually collaborate to set up a panel that will return a guilty verdict. But in Nasarawa State in 2014, the PDP majority in the assembly initiated the impeachment of the APC governor, Umar Tanko Al-Makura. But the chief judge set up a panel which returned a not guilty verdict. And the Constitution says if the panel brings a not guilty verdict, that is the end of the process. And I suspect that in Rivers State we are heading in the same direction. And the pro-Wike members of the assembly were aware of it, because some months ago they tried to remove this chief judge, Samuel Amadi. They tried to remove him. They said that he falsified his age or something like that. And I could see immediately it was because they probably failed to get his cooperation to set up a kind of panel that will automatically return a guilty verdict against the governor. But now we haven't even gotten to that stage. He got one of his colleagues in the same High Court to issue an order, and he said, I must respect this order. And then the assembly members said they are appealing, and this kind of thing can take a very long time. But in the end, even if the Wike camp wins, it is still the same chief judge who will set up the panel to probe the allegations, and we'll see how it goes.
Indeed. And Mazi Dixon, without impugning the integrity of the judiciary, do you see the hand of Abuja in all of this? I mean, and beyond that, does this strengthen Governor Fubara now by effectively exposing the overreach from the other side, or does it weaken him by keeping Rivers State almost permanently on edge now?
The movement to APC, this is the result. So it was Adams Oshomole, former chairman of APC, who said once you join APC, all your sins will be forgiven. So the protection he's getting is just simply because of that move. I have stated on this show before that Enso Wike has been thrown under the bus. He's just probably going to realize it a bit more, maybe later. The truth is that Fubara is now with the president and will be protected by the president, and that's what has played out. So, but unfortunately, it's the Rivers people that are suffering. Governance is suffering in Rivers State. That's just. I wish all of these political games they are playing was favoring the people. The move to APC, Fubara is just saving himself. How well has he performed thus far? Rivers people can attest to it, that governance has suffered terribly under his watch. So it's all politics and then distraction from the purpose of his emergence as governor. Let him continue to enjoy the protection for now, but Nyesom Wike should begin to realign. The earlier he does that for himself, the better, because the damage he did to his party, when you burn down your father's house, when you go outside, you become homeless. So he cannot in any way at the moment be secured anywhere, because he attempted to burn down the house that built him, that gave him leverage to even become minister. So
that's the PDP.
Yes, the PDP, of course, my party. So let him enjoy it. But Fubara, his days can also be said to be numbered, because APC has put it on notice that there is no automatic ticket to anybody who is coming into their camp. So some of them who moved in along the way, by the time PDP secures its position again, most likely they will have to start coming back in droves back home.
Well, that'll be something that'll be very interesting to watch, won't it, as we get closer to 2027. Yeah. But talking about securing things, Mahmood, let's turn to insecurity. Fresh abductions in Kajuru in Kaduna State suggest a familiar pattern. Is Nigeria failing at prevention or simply reacting after communities are already traumatized?
Honestly, what happened in Kaduna State is very, very distressing. It's not the only one. Not so long ago, we had an even larger, 177 people were carted away in Kaduna, but an even larger number in Niger State, I think 220 or so. And also there was the event in Kwara also where some. So it looks like the security leadership has to completely re-strategize.
But of course, this one is getting, sorry to interrupt you, a lot of international attention because they are specifically taken from Christian churches.
Yes. Exactly. Just like the Kwara one, and also even the Niger one was a Christian school. And I don't know whether somebody is trying deliberately to feed into the American narrative. Exactly, because I think there is an American team that just came and was saying you must do more to protect Christian communities, and to have 177 people, women, children, elders, everybody carted away. Look at the logistics of carting away 177 people, how you move them, where you take them, how you hide them, how you feed them. All things that and also initially the security agencies in Kaduna even denied that there was such an abduction, only to come back a day or two later. So something is seriously amiss. And
somebody said something is seriously rotten in the house of Nigerian security. And I mean, Mazi Dixon, after so many years of so-called enhanced operations, we're still asking the same questions, and you wonder at what point does persistent insecurity stop being a security failure and become a governance failure?
Until we take governance seriously. From day one, the president came on board and started playing politics. And so that distracted him away from governance. And so what we're seeing today is just the failure of leadership. And the president is still playing the politics. The government of the day has not realized that the first thing that will give you even victory, you have an opportunity now to become president, okay, perform, so that the people can say, where have you been all this while? But rather than do that, he's still playing politics of grab it and grab it and grab it. So the people are left on their own, you know. And it's not just about Christians, it's Nigerians. I admit that Christian persecution is going on in Nigeria. But Nigerians, whether Muslim, Christian, or pagans, are all being slaughtered in our country. So, and the logistics involved, that's what baffles me. The logistics involved in moving this number of people. And then the security, well, the police, like my colleague here said, even the first 2 days said, no, there's nothing like that. So it shows you clearly the absence of governance, you know, in different parts of our country. And it's unfortunate, really. Very sad.
Indeed.
Very, very sad.
And Mahmoud Jega, you mentioned the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu being visited by a U.S. delegation. And, you know, I'm wondering whether that's a diplomatic warning shot along the lines of what we heard before, and whether you think that external pressure can help fix Nigeria's security problem, or whether it just exposes how thin state authority has become in this country.
Everybody knows in this country that our number one problem is insecurity, all this insurgency and kidnappings. I don't think the American intervention in particular is helpful, because they are pushing the wrong narrative. The government has tried very hard to say, look, we have this serious insecurity problem, but all parts of the country and people of all faiths suffer from it and are being killed. You cannot just choose one part. Okay, terrible things happen in Benue and in Plateau, but equally terrible, sometimes even worse things happened in Borno, in Yobe, in Zamfara, in Kaduna, in Niger, and more lately in Kwara. So you are not really helping. I'm talking about the Americans, if you emphasize. And there is no way I see practically that the government can protect Christian communities if it does not protect others. Exactly. You have to protect all citizens. Right. Like the kidnappers, they don't care about your religion. They just waylay you on the highway and drag you into the bush. So we need security. And if anybody wants to help internationally, this is the kind of help. Give the correct narrative and then assist us in tackling this problem. But if you keep pushing for your own domestic political reasons, because that's really what Trump and his colleagues are doing, for their own domestic political reasons, they are pushing a false narrative in Nigeria, which complicates matters for the Nigerian
government. But in fairness,
it's not particularly false, really. The Christian persecution in Nigeria or whatever, it's not particularly
but I think the point is making that it's not just the Christians who are being persecuted.
I agree.
And I think that the point also is that even though the Americans are saying that, okay, I mean, it's clear they're doing it for their domestic audience, the political side of things, but they're also, you know, not actually going after the Nigerian government as such, you know, with regard to the Christian thing. But let's move on, because diplomacy and ambassadorial postings, new ambassadors to the US, UK, and France. Is that a strategic reset in your assessment, or optics that doesn't have any substance, really?
Charles, the Tinubu government has been in power for about 32 months, about 11,680 days. And we just have 3 ambassadorial confirmation and all of that. It doesn't show seriousness. I'm ashamed to be called a Nigerian at this time, sincerely, because no country will take us seriously. So what is how many days left? Because he thinks he's going to hold on to the power up to 2027? Well, he'll be shocked. It's unfortunate. Yeah, he has appointed people, and out of 60, we still have about 68 left, and all that. I think out of 68, he just confirmed 3. It just doesn't show that we are part of, you know, what is happening around the globe, and that Nigeria wants to bring in real, you know, attention to the plights and indeed also the possibilities or potentials in our country. This president doesn't seem to understand governance. He was overrated. Tinubu clearly is an overrated president.
Mahmoud, we're fast running out of time. What exactly is Nigeria trying to change abroad with these appointments if the core problems remain unresolved at home?
Exactly. I mean, diplomas, there's a limit to what diplomats can do. I mean, if you go to US or somewhere explaining things, if it does not tally with the reality on the ground, because these countries also have their embassies inside Nigeria, very large ones, and they have newspaper people, they have business people, and they get a lot of information from all kinds of sources. So just putting an ambassador in London or in France will not solve your problem. And look at the messy way in which it was done. Yesterday, you said you have appointed 4 ambassadors to these 3 countries and another one to Turkey. And that one that they said they appointed to Turkey, they said he's a former governor of Kebbi State. And they gave one jumbled up name. People in Kebbi quickly rushed and said, that is not the name of our former governor that you said you appointed. And in any case, he was not in the list of the 68 ambassadors that were taken to the Senate for screening. So how can you post him when he was not screened by the Senate? And all the others that were screened, you didn't post them. And then they announced today that they have withdrawn that posting to Turkey.
A bit of a mess, really, isn't it?
Mess.
Well, we've literally got 20 seconds. Donald Trump is back on the Davos stage, global stage. We've seen, shifts in Western foreign policy. I wonder how vulnerable you see Nigeria in that sort of context. In a world that is becoming more transactional, less forgiving, especially on security and governance issues.
I thought our president would have, grabbed the opportunity, affirming
to actually go and meet him.
Go and meet Mr. Trump one-on-one. When is he going to meet him? So that we at least can know that our president is doing something. He missed another opportunity, or is he afraid of meeting Donald J. Trump? When is the president possibly going to go to America to meet with his colleague to discuss the interests of Nigeria? But for Trump, for me, I'm a fan of Donald J. Trump, and he went out there, reeled out what he has achieved in the last 1 year of his administration, and he came big, and then also announced the board of peace that he's on the issue of Gaza and all of that. So for me, he just continues, putting America first, and that is what every leader ought to do.
Right.
But unfortunately, our president is not available to put the Nigerian people and Nigeria first.
So guys, this has been the battle between the Obidient movement and the ADC. The ADC is saying that Obidient should stop insisting that it must be Peter Obi. They said for the fact that they have people like Atiku, Amechi, Elrufai in the party who are also interested in the presidential ticket. If you can remember recently, Elrufai came out denying that he has never said he is going to support a southern candidate, and that is on record. People now start sharing videos of Elrufai saying he's going to support a southern candidate, but now Elrufai is making a U-turn. Possibly he himself too wants to run, and when he runs, he might want to, merge with Atiku going forward during the primaries. That's what personally I'm sensing, and that's what Obidients are fighting back, that they are not going to allow Peter Obi be there and lose the presidential ticket. Now let me take you through more headlines going on the social media. Tribalism: Tinubu removes Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Igboho's name from wanted list. So guys, Sunday Igboho is just normal. I also heard that some of the monarchs from Yoruba land are fighting hard to make sure that Sunday Igboho returns to the nation. So guys, when it comes to, I believe that Tinubu actually won the support of the Northerners on the basis of, prosecuting Nnamdi Kanu. Possibly that's one of the agreements, that I'm not going to let him go. And that is actually what is happening now. Anyway, in case you don't know, Nnamdi Kanu's case will be heard tomorrow at the appeal court. The process will start tomorrow. Let's see what Tinubu has in stock for Ndi-Igbo. When Ndi-Igbo through Igbo Union and not the Slavish or Ohanese declared that there was a country, and that there is no longer that implied country, it is now Zoa, and never allow Igbo rule again. Naira is now constitution, and Biafra must be. Both him and Kanu were labeled separationists, yet one is 7 life imprisonment and the other one removed from wanted list. Lord. So these are some of the things. Sunday Igboho has been set free from those agitating. Nnamdi Kanu is serving life in jail. I believe this is one of the agreements reached that Tinubu reached with the Northerners, because actually it's the Northerners that are holding Nnamdi Kanu, not even the presidency. Buhari started it, and possibly they agreed in the North that they will never let him go. considering the fact that he is an Igbo man. And now Tinubu came in, and from my own my own feeling, I'm thinking that Tinubu must have promised the North that he will never let Nnamdi Kanu go, because I believe that must be the agreement. Now, this person, unfortunately, Soludo is in Onitsha.